Drugfree.org.
This is your 420 Radio News for Thursday, September 19, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Feds warn of serious penalties on eve of 9th pot rally at Independence Hall, from Philly.com. Marijuana activists this weekend will rally for the 9th time since last December at Independence Mall in what is referred to as smoke down prohibition protests. One of the organizers, Richard Tamaccio, a comedian who goes by the stage name N.A. Poe, faces sentencing on Tuesday in federal court. Two more organizers, Chris Goldstein and Don DeZam, were cited for possession of marijuana at the last smoke down prohibition protest, August 31st, their second pot bust at the protest. Federal prosecutors are not allowing Goldstein and DeZam to pay a fine like they did for their first citation. Instead, both are required to appear before a federal judge. A date for a preliminary hearing has not yet been set. Assistant U.S. Attorney Richard Goldberg declined to comment, but a spokeswoman for the U.S. Attorney said the federal government is not taking smoking pot on federal property lightly. Goldberg recommended stringent probation terms in the filing for N.A. Poe, including banning him from entering Independence National Historic Park in connection with any meeting, gathering, or demonstration unless approved by a probation officer, banning him from associating with any others arrested for pot possession at marijuana events in the park or organizers of such events, and no further arrests during his probationary period. The high cost of the Freedom Cage, from edroper.com. The monthly Smokedown Prohibition events have been happening in Philadelphia. Hosted by Philly Normal and the comedy group The Panic Hour, they have evolved into an ongoing regular act of mass marijuana civil disobedience, only steps away from the Liberty Bell. Starting in early 2013, the first 4 occurred without incident. No arrests were made or citations handed out by park police. However, on May 18th, the National Park Service decided to start kicking up enforcement actions, and multiple arrests were made. In April 2013, the last Smokedown event held without police interaction, the cost of overtime for the National Park Service police totaled $1,522. The very next month, when National Park Service police decided to start making arrests, costs increased to $5,350 worth of overtime. On June 30th, 2013, the Park Service decided for reasons unknown to dramatically up their presence and brought in even more police, some dressed in full riot gear. On this date, the cost of overtime combined with travel expenses shot up to an astounding $21,563. These are the costs for just one of the agencies present. National Park Service, from the fines, earned roughly $1,700. Only 10 citations were made at the event, some of which have since been thrown out. State court, medical necessity okay reason for pot, from the Columbian. Washington's Supreme Court says defendants busted for marijuana charges can argue they needed it for medical reasons, even if they failed to follow the requirements of the state's medical marijuana law. In a 5-4 opinion Thursday, the justices said voters did not get rid of the medical necessity defense when they passed the medical pot law in 1998. Justice Barbara Madsen wrote for the majority that people who fail to follow the medical law can nevertheless argue in court that they needed the marijuana for medical reasons. But in order to do so, they must also show that complying with the medical marijuana law was not a viable alternative for them. One toke, many hits. Exercise could trigger additional high for marijuana users, from Time magazine. The study, published in Drug and Alcohol Dependence, found that levels of THC, marijuana's active ingredient, were higher by an average of 15% immediately after users exercised. And that could be enough to trigger a positive blood test and suggest that users got high more recently than they actually did. Although it's been known for years that THC is stored in fat and can sometimes cause positive tests weeks after a person has last smoked it, the study is the first to document that exercise can lead to a rise in its levels in the blood. Changes in THC levels after exercise, which ranged from 0% to 34%, increased with body fat. The study's lead author, Ian McGregor, said, quote, "People with larger BMI showed a bigger increase and very thin people had no effect," end quote. The rise was short-lived, lasting for less than 2 hours. This has been your 420 Radio News for Thursday, September 19th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we have footage from the Boston Freedom Rally and the inaugural speech from Jack Cole from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, opening up the Boston Freedom Rally's first day. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back.